seated.
Wait a minute, Judge. I gotta
All right, continuing in the matter of People versus Cochran. Present, the attorneys are present, the jury is all present. Accounted for, channel prematurely, they're still marking exhibits. Are you ready to go?
Your Honor, we do have the exhibits marked, but we were still trying to see if there was a way to improve the sound for the one clip that's quite lengthy. And if we can't improve the sound, Your Honor, I'm going to respectfully request that Detective Ogden be able to sit to the court's right hand so that he could listen or hear the audio better and testify based on that.
All right, first of all, Detective, would you please raise your right hand and be sworn again?
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Please be seated.
So, Detective, do you want to sit over here right now?
Well, we don't start that clip for a little while yet, Your Honor,
All right.
and I guess
Please have a seat.
I would request a break before we start it so that we can try and improve the audio. We weren't quite ready to start this morning.
10 after 9. I don't know why you weren't ready.
Excuse me?
Nothing.
Detective, before we move on in this matter, I want to clear up something with you from yesterday. Was there a time during this investigation when you received 2 shirts from the defendant that were related to the investigation?
Yes.
And what 2 shirts did you receive?
A shirt, a tank top of hers and a t-shirt of Jason's.
And how are they related to this investigation?
She claimed that they were worn during the commission of the crime.
And was there any indication from the defendant whether or not those items had been washed?
Yes, she said they had been laundered.
Now, before we recessed yesterday, we were talking about your meeting with Kelly Cochran on April 26th, 2016. That date was important because it was Chris Regan's birthday, is that correct?
It was.
Now, by this time in the investigation, which was the end of April, is it fair to say that you had numerous meetings, phone conferences, and text messages with the defendant?
Yes, we had spoken a lot, and we had met on a number of occasions where it was either at the station in the interview room. Initially, she really didn't want to be in the interview room, of course. She wanted to meet in a public place, and I went with the public place right out of the gate. I didn't care because as long as I was somewhere with her and would get her to be able to talk to me, it was important that I go that route to begin with in order to be able to get her to continue to talk to me.
Okay. And I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you speak up a little bit? I don't know if these are working. Are they? Okay. All right, thank you. Did you receive more than one version of events related to the Post-it note directions from Kelly Cochran?
Yes.
And what were the various versions of events with respect to the Post-it note directions?
She told me that Chris Regan had asked her for directions 4 times to her house. She ultimately tells me that, she admits that he only got directions on that day because it was the only time he'd ever been there. But previous to that, she had told me that, he had been there on a number of occasions for dinner and sex, and it just didn't, it didn't make any sense that Chris Regan, this guy who served in the military for 20 years and was deployed overseas and experienced hiker and navigator of the woods, would need directions on 4 different occasions to get from Iron River to Caspian to a house that he could be at in less than 5 minutes from his apartment.
Did she indicate to you that she was always the person who gave Chris Regan the directions?
On one occasion, she indicated that Jason, that she initially started the conversation on Jason's phone with Chris Regan, texting him to come to the house to meet her, and that ultimately she says that Jason provided the directions on his phone to Chris Regan on how to get to the house.
No, did that make sense to you?
No.
Or what did you think when she said that?
Well, it didn't make any sense to me because, at this point, at that particular point in the investigation, she's admitted that she knew what was going to happen. and you're going to see that. And she has already admitted that she knew what was going to happen, and she admits that she knew that he was coming there to die, and that she's texting him that, to come and meet, and then why would Jason then be the one to text the directions? It didn't make any sense at that point either in her story that, her phone's broken, but it's really not broken. She's using Jason's phone in order, if anything were to occur, everything falls on Jason, not on her. That's the reason her phone is conveniently not used.
Objection, Your Honor. This is all speculation.
Objection's overruled.
Now, what conversation, if any, do you recall having with the defendant regarding trophies or a trophy bag?
When we were driving back from Iron River on the first trip here, on March 30th, when we were driving back, it was in the middle of the night, and her and I were having a discussion, and we were kind of going back and forth, and I told her something along the lines that I knew that there might be more. Because when I looked at everything to do with this case and the sudden movement from Indiana to Michigan into the middle of nowhere with no one that they actually knew, as an investigator, you wonder why people move from one location to another and with no roots tied whatsoever. And there's usually reasons for that. And so you look at the totality of everything, and I was concerned that there might be other things. And at one point I asked her if there was ever trophies, and she starts talking about Jason and trophies. And ultimately, during a number of interviews, she tells me that there's a trophy bag, it's a Crown Royal bag, and that it's kept in the basement in a cabinet, and that these are his trophies from his kills, and that she has taken these from him just prior to Chris Reagan's death, and she's went and hidden them out in the woods at the ultimate final resting place of Chris Reagan, at their hands, that resting place.
Did she ever change her statement with you regarding those trophies being Jason's as opposed to hers?
Yeah, ultimately she tells me that she's responsible for kills also, and that, she has trophies also.
Now, was there more than one version of events regarding what she and Chris were doing and their positions near the back door when Chris was shot?
Yeah. She talked about having sex from the front, I think, in the very beginning, where her back is to the wall. She says that, she provided him with oral sex as soon as he walked through the door, and that the entire time that's going on, Jason is lying in wait in the basement, and that then she turns around and faces the wall and lets him have sex with her from behind. And those things, as I said yesterday, it didn't make any sense that he would wait down in the basement for 20, 30 minutes to do something when those things were occurring.
What about what they were doing specifically at the time Chris was shot? What position they were in, whether going upstairs, downstairs?
Yeah, there's been a variety of examples from her. Like she said that he was walking up the stairs when he was shot. Well, at first she said he was shot upstairs in the bedroom, and then she said that he was shot walking up the stairs from the landing in the back into the kitchen. And then now the final story is he's on the landing and some sexual act is occurring. She says that oral sex occurs and then, the other sex occurs, is what she ends up saying.
But did she say that he shot during the middle of sex as opposed to after they finished?
Yes, she says that, ultimately she says that during the middle of sex, Jason shoots her.
Now, were there various versions of what the Cochrans did on October 15th after the shooting?
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
Were there various versions of what the Cochrans did on October 15th, the day after the shooting?
Yes. She said that at one point that they got rid of the car first before the dismemberment of Chris Reagan. Then she's given a story that says that during the middle of dismembering Chris Reagan, that Jason comes out when he would have been completely bloody, and that they go and get rid of the car. She has slipped and said she drove, or he had me drive, and then said he drove the car, and that's within her own words. But she's kind of always stuck to Jason drove the car, and that she told him to wear things so that he wouldn't leave his DNA in the car or do things in order to leave evidence in the car. That's been her main story.
Okay. Were there various versions of what the Cochrans did on October 5th or 15th, the day after the shooting?
Yes. The night of the 14th is where they get rid of him, and then on the 15th they talk about going to Iron Mountain and going to the Walmart and the Chinese restaurant, and I don't really recall all the rest of the things that have been said to do with it.
And I believe your testimony yesterday was that she went by the remains, she went to Chris's apartment, she cleaned.
I'm sorry, I was on the wrong day. Yes, on the 15th, she told me that she left the house under the idea of Jason believing she was going to the gas station or something, and that she went to Chris Reagan's apartment in order to retrieve her wedding ring and the camera, and that while she was out and had driven past the police department to Chris Reagan's apartment, and also left her cell phone at home so that she wouldn't be tracked, that she then also went back to the dump site, the place where she and Jason took Chris Reagan, and just to see what it looked like. And she talked about the vivid yellow and red in the wooded area.
Did she give you, during this time frame, also a statement that she spent all day on the 15th cleaning blood up in the basement?
Yeah, she says when she comes back that, she's busy cleaning up everything. She said she used 7 gallons of bleach in the basement. When she ends up telling me about I end up confronting her about the trip to Walmart, I ask about additional cleaning things and stuff like that, but nothing ever really comes of that.
Were there several versions of what happened to Chris Reagan's car keys?
Yeah, I think at one point, we're told that she doesn't know what happened to the keys, and then I believe ultimately she says something to the effect of they're put inside a cup and dumped at a gas station garbage can.
And was there any indication as to where or how she came by possession of the keys?
The keys were taken from Chris Reagan after he was killed.
And did she say, was that off his body? Was that off from a table? Was it out of his coat pocket?
I believe she said they were in his coat pocket.
Now, what various descriptions were given by the defendant, if any, let me skip that one. Were there differing statements from the defendant about who was texting from Jason Cochran's phone at various times?
Yes, in the beginning she said that, she knew nothing about this crime at all, and that they had no knowledge of anything that had occurred. And then it went to Jason did all of this, and I just got stuck in the middle of it, and then it went to I'm taking part in this, and I'm texting Chris Reagan from Jason's phone. Or actually before that, it was Jason was texting Chris Reagan from her phone, or from his phone. And then it went to she's texting from Jason's phone. And then there's also Jason texting those directions on that day as part of her story from his own phone to Chris Reagan's phone. But she does admit that she says that Jason was texting those directions as her because of the previous text to Chris Reagan saying, hey, my phone's broken. I'm using Jason's phone.
Now, were you aware of her original version of events in November, that they didn't have anything at all to do with the death?
Yes.
And did that evolve to Jason shot him and she wasn't aware Jason was even present? Did that story evolve?
Oh, yes, yes.
And did it evolve again to Jason's a serial killer and I'm an abused wife?
Yes.
And did it eventually evolve at the end of April in 2016 once again?
Yes.
Now, At the end of April 2016, was there some discussion with the defendant regarding playing chess?
Yes.
And what was said about that?
I asked her if she liked playing chess, and she said she wasn't very good at it. And I said, I thought she was pretty good at it, and she said, we'll see.
Now, I want to direct your attention to April 27th.
I'm sorry. And also, there was discussion throughout this entire thing, and it was kind of a thing between her and I where I would bring up chess, and I would talk about moving of the pawns. And I don't play chess, and I really know nothing about it, but it came up during this, so I kind of just went with it, and so I don't even actually know what all the pieces are.
Do you believe chess to be a game of strategy?
It is. I know that it's a game of strategy, and I know that that is why she engaged with me the way she did, because she felt me to be a worthy opponent, I believe.
Okay. Now I want to direct your attention to April 27th. Did she agree to meet with you that day?
Yes.
And that was the day after Chris's birthday, right?
Yes.
Now, where was she supposed to meet you at?
During the interview on the 26th, she had agreed to meet me at a police station at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and she said that she had some type of appointment, and that after that appointment she would come to the police station and meet with me.
And did she show up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon?
No.
Or what happened?
I started getting like calls where she would delay me, or eventually she calls me on that day and tells me that she'll meet me after hours. She wants to meet me sometime like after 5 o'clock or something, and I don't know the exact time, but I was to the point where things were going to happen on my time, or because throughout this whole time she tried to control the investigation and use misdirection and lead me in other directions so that I wouldn't continue down the path that I was on. And so I had been taking control of everything with her when it came to times and meetings and stuff like that. So at that point I'm like, no, I'm not meeting with you in the afternoon. You're going to do it on my time, and we'll do it tomorrow morning.
Did she say something about being out of cell service?
Yeah, she, during her text, she said that she would be out of cell service for about 20 minutes, and then I started wondering that.
Okay, what about that statement made you wonder?
At that point, she had indicated before that she was trying to find somewhere to go. She wanted to leave, and at that point, I thought, she's going to run.
Now, on April 28th, did you receive a text from her that morning?
Yeah.
And what did it say?
It says the West Coast burn something in the morning, but I think it's supposed to be the West Coast. And I would have to read the text to be able to tell you something about the West Coast and it looking good.
Your Honor, at this time, we have marked People's Proposed Exhibit number 14, which contained text messages, 6 of them, I believe, or 6 pages.
Mr. Shoki, any objection?
No legal reason or against this, Your Honor.
Pardon?
No, sir.
16 is received.
And there's 5 of them, 5 slides. May I approach the witness?
Yes.
Detective, I'm showing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit number... No, that's not it. I'm sorry, Your Honor, I might have misspoke. It's People's Exhibit 13.
13 on texts.
13 on the text.
13 is received.
Now, the first text, Detective, what are you discussing in this text?
She says she'll be out of cell service in about 20 minutes for something I'm taking care of, so I'll be able to get your call in a little while. I won't be able to get your call for a little while.
And what is your response?
Okay, I'm at the police station. I was in a meeting.
And what does she say?
That's fine. Should I be waiting for you to call?
And what do you say?
Are you going to be here at 1? And she says, I'm going to, hence the call.
Now, Moving to slide 2.
Yes.
Could you please read those text messages?
I said, well, it says hence to call again, and then I said, call me.
And do the next set of text messages, were those on April 28th around 9:47 a.m.?
Yes.
So what'd you text her?
I texted her on April 28th and said, are you showing up?
And if you could read those for us, please.
She says, it's going to be 10, sorry, running late. I said, where? Go to the station and text me. She said, ever burn, which she meant Ben, to the West Coast. I was driving last night.
Slide number 3, please. What is your response to that?
I said, what's up? Are you meeting today? Hello? This is fun, very interesting, game on. And then I said, nothing, period, no more play. And then I wrote LOL.
And so when you get that text saying that, ever been to the West Coast, I was driving last night, what was your thoughts on that?
Right then I knew that she was running, and I immediately called Chief Frizzle and told her, I think she's on the run.
And when you talked with Chief Rizzo, did you have some reason to believe that she was on the run and might harm herself?
Yeah, Chief Rizzo said that she had been communicating with Kelly's brother Colton, and that Colton was concerned that Kelly was going off to kill herself.
What did you do next?
I got on the phone with Lake County Dispatch, which is our central dispatch location, and asked the dispatcher that answered the phone to initiate an emergency ping on her cell phone.
And did you receive a call back from Lake County Dispatch regarding the ping?
Yes.
And did you at some point in time convey the name of the subject that you were trying to ping to the dispatcher?
Yeah, initially I was in pretty much a hurry, and so I just gave her the cell phone number and told her, here, do this, I'll give you the information later. And the dispatcher called me back and she said, her name was Dama, and she said, what's the name of the person that is attached to this phone? And I said, Kelly Cochran, and she said, Jason is my cousin. And I said, okay, you have to understand that what we're doing this morning is very confidential, and your job is to maintain confidentiality, and whatever you do, you can't share what I'm asking you to do with any of your family members. And her response to me was, I don't like her anyway. And
What's the relevancy of this?
The objection is hearsay, and it's sustained.
So, based on your conversation with the dispatcher that day, did you come up with a possible location for the defendant?
yes, she told me that the dispatcher told me that most likely Kelly was headed to Wingo, Kentucky to her cousin's house because she had had contact with her cousin just a couple days prior, saying that she might stop through there.
Now, going back to page 3 or slide 3, do you continue to have conversation with the defendant on April 28th?
Yes, she says, your move, detective. See you soon.
And so what did you respond to that?
I said, that's funny, why didn't you just say you were out? No more conversations.
And what were you doing now with these text messages?
I was spacing these text messages out at this time because I knew that she's very smart and that she would shut her phone off so that I wouldn't be able to track her. But I knew that she was interested enough in the game that she was playing with me that she would turn it on for a second to see what I text, and if it was anything worthy of her responding to, that she would take the time to respond to me, and in turn I might actually get a ping on her phone. And it worked.
Were you able to get pings on her phone?
Yes, although her phone was out of service almost all the time, there were times where she turned her phone on and then responded to me.
And you were able to ping her at that time?
Right, and I pinged her somewhere in the area of Kentucky, which was on a route that was headed towards Wingo.
Towards Wingo?
Yes.
Now, could you read us the rest of the text messages that you had with her on slides 4 and 5?
She said wasn't going to make it that easy for you. I worked hard.
And your response?
I said, are you going to call me? What's the deal? No text, no call.
Now, so you talk to Chief Rizzo, you find out that she's possibly on the run and suicidal. Did you talk with anyone else to get them put into place in case she needed to be apprehended?
Yeah, you know, after I talked to Chief Rizzo indicated to me that she was going to come see the prosecutor and that they would get working on things here at their end and to get a warrant issued. And at that time, I called the U.S. Marshals in my area, who I've previously worked with on a number of occasions, and said, you know, I need the supervisor and I need somebody to help me take this woman into custody in Kentucky. And I knew that, having previously worked with the U.S. Marshals, that they would have a team that was close by and that they would activate that team for me and send them in the area, that location, in an effort to apprehend her once a warrant was issued.
And what time do you think in the day are we at now where you're talking to the marshals?
I began talking to the marshals somewhere around 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I get them moving. And somewhere around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I have a conference call with yourself and Chief Rizzo. And at that time, Chief Rizzo is about to swear out the warrant, and I'm just waiting to get a copy of the warrant so that I can forward it to my Marshal Service team. And they're already rolling their team in Wingo to head up and set up on this house to see if they can identify her truck. And I think actually before the warrant's issued, somebody actually tells me that they have her truck in sight. And I believe at that time it was a Kentucky state police officer that was driving an unmarked car had spotted her truck at this particular location in Wingo.
So was the warrant eventually faxed to you?
Yes. And I forwarded the warrant to the U.S. Marshals, and they waited till all their team arrived for safety purposes. And once they had a ops plan in place, they went in and took her into custody.
And do you know approximately what time that was?
Between 7 and 8 o'clock at night.
Now, did you receive a phone call that evening, April 28th, after she was apprehended, from a lieutenant from Kentucky State Police?
Yeah, I got a phone call from this lieutenant. After she was taken into custody, I went in and I walked out in my backyard and I grabbed a beer. And I walked into my garage and I stood with the garage door open and I drank like 3 or 4 beers. And I answered the phone and I talked to this lieutenant from state police, and he told me that she was requesting to give a statement. So at that time I called my prosecutor and conveyed to him that she wanted to give this statement, and I wasn't going to be able to drive immediately because I had just drank these beers. So I called Detective Houck and asked Detective Houck if he was willing to go to Kentucky with me and drive so that we could finish this case.
And did you, in fact, drive all night to Kentucky and arrive there early in the morning?
Yeah, Detective Houck drove all night, and we arrived there at like 6 o'clock in the morning. I drank coffee and took a little nap.
And did you do a little bit of interviewing on the 29th?
A little bit.
And was the majority of the interview on the 30th?
Yes.
Your Honor, we have marked People's Proposed Exhibit number 10, which is a hard drive copy of the interview from Kentucky. We would rather not play the clip because we're not sure if we're going to have issues with the clip itself, so we'd like to play directly from the hard drive and see if that works better. I believe that we're still going to have some issues with sound.
All right, are you prepared to go forward with that now?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, that exhibit is received.
Would it be okay for Detective Ogden to move over to the other chair next to you, Your Honor?
Yeah, whatever helps. The bailiff is indicating that the speakers, the wall speakers are not on.
I don't know how to turn those on, Your Honor.
I'm gonna take a recess and get a hold of Ms. Woolman. Members of the jury, we're gonna take a recess at this time, and we'll get you back here as soon as